welcome to another episode of Off the Menu. I'm your host, Vincent Franchini from Tumblr House, here with the manumitted Charles Coulombe.
Manumitted? Seriously? Manumitted? As in liberated from slavery?
That's right.
As in free?
Aren't you?
Well, yeah. The school year has come to an end. It's wonderful. Starting Monday, I am free as a bird.
What are you going to do with all your free time now?
Well, if I were an immature Bafulu, I would be on the next plane back to the big nowhere.
Ooh.
And spend the rest of June, all of July, August, and September in LA. But I'm not a Bafulu. But I got me 2 books to churn out. So I would never get them written in LA.
Well, why do you got to put out books, Charles? I mean, surely Tumblr House gives you an honest wage.
Why should I have to worry about money? Yeah, well, let's just put it this way. Things have been a little tight since your great uncle left us. I'm not getting the kind of money I used to get when I was just considering back when I used to advise him on finer points of etiquette and stuff.
Etiquette, yeah.
Yeah, etiquette. Well, he would ask me. He'd say, "Hey, which side does the salad fork go on?" Things like that.
Yeah.
Why? What did you think he would ask me about?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, he used to throw these parties. You know, you may just remember them because toward the end when you came along, but he used to throw these big parties. Everybody who was anybody would be there, or else, and it was etiquette.
Etiquette. Do you know like the etiquette of like super high society? One of my coworkers was telling me about like the cotillion culture, where she was saying interesting things like you should not finish your soup because in order to finish your soup, you're clanking, and you can't clank. And so that stuff like that's fascinating to me. So
that's true. Your spoon.
Yeah.
Yeah, you spoon. You never quite finish it when the spoon. Basically, the spoon can't hit the bottom of the bowl.
Yeah.
So you always leave a thin layer of soup. The other thing, of course, is that with your spoon, you spoon it away from you, and then you drag the spoon along the edge of the bowl to take off excess liquid, and then you bring it to your mouth.
Wait, you spoon it away from you?
Yeah. You take the spoon and you spoon it away from you. Scrape it off because, there's stuff on the bottom. Scrape it off on the edge of the bowl, lift it to your snout.
Well, wouldn't that make like a clanking sound or something?
No.
Wow. Isn't that a sin against God, though, to leave food there gratuitously out of pride?
Well, let's just say that at one point, I don't want to say who, but you notice you didn't see Edgardo Fecciolini around after you were 5. You may remember he vanished. Well, the problem was we were having a formal dinner at Casa Franchini. And poor old Edgardo, I was sitting next to him, and he began to take that last spoonful. And that would have made a big clanking noise. So I said, don't use the spoon to get that last thing. Just leave it. And he says, well, why? And I said, because it'll clank. You don't want to do that. He said, oh, well, okay. So he puts the spoon down, and then he takes the bowl, lifts it to his lips, and slurps up the rest very loudly. Your great uncle looked at this, and we never saw Edgardo again.
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. Italian culture is so dramatically different. I'll never forget when my dad and I went to the Franchini family reunion in 2001, just before September 11th, actually. And I don't think either him or I have ever eaten as much food in our entire lives.
Oh, I didn't
I
say there
mean,
wasn't a lot of food.
we were just absolutely bursting because it's like you don't want to offend
No,
the cook, and
especially not the Franchini house.
I'll never forget what my dad said to me on the plane going home. He said, "Okay, to survive next time, what we'll do is we won't eat for 2 days, and when we arrive, we'll say we just ate, and then maybe we'll get through." Oh
That would,
man.
yeah. No, it's true. We'll see again. There are certain ethnicities. I don't want to be too blunt, but there are certain ethnicities. The Italians are one, where an affection is shown through food. Just the way it is. I mean, and they take offense if you refuse it.
Interesting. Yeah.
Mexicans are like that too.
Who's like that?
You don't want to refuse the Mexicans. You don't want to refuse food in a Mexican house.
Yeah.
They get Latin cultures in general, I guess, tend to be that way. As I'm sitting here thinking about it, that's why it's so wonderful being a Latin, as opposed to other ethnicities. Mind you, the joke in Scotland is that in Glasgow, where there are a lot of Irish, if you come to a home, they'll say, "Have you had your tea yet?" If you're in Falkirk, which is in have some tea. If you're in Falkirk, which is midway to Edinburgh, they'll say, "Have you had your tea yet?" If you're in Edinburgh, they'll say, "You'll have had your tea."
Why would they say that?
Because Edinburgh, they're, I don't want to say they're cheap, but they're frugal.
Oh, okay, I don't know some of these nuanced characterizations of some of
You'll
these
have
cultures.
had your tea. Ross McEwen will stand by me on this one. You'll have had your tea.
All right. What else is new, Charles? What's going on? Anything to report?
Oh, well, yes. Last Sunday was Pentecost. This coming tomorrow is Trinity Sunday. And then we're in the wide world of the Sundays after Pentecost. Corpus Christi is coming up Thursday of next week in the normal world. And on the following
Thursday, which Thursday, like this upcoming Thursday or the following Thursday?
Following Thursday, I think.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it's just coming. I'll have to check. But Corpus Christi in the normal world is on Thursday. But in stupid places, it's been shoved on to Sunday.
It's this Thursday, the 16th.
This Thursday, right. And so the Friday after the octave of Corpus Christi, which is the Thursday following this coming, is the Feast of the Sacred Heart. And then that's pretty much the end of the movable feasts until Advent.
But then, wouldn't St. John's Eve be right after that, though?
Oh, yeah. But that's our movable feast. It's always 23rd June.
I see.
And of course, once St. John's is over, other than the Assumption on August 15th, it's basically staying alive until the cool breaths of autumn again.
That's for sure. It's triple digits over here in Southern California. And Tumbler House, we're trying to be economical. So, save money. We're looking out for the people so we can pay you guys.
So basically, so basically, only the executive suites are air conditioned right now. I get it. I understand what that's like.
We've been over this before.
Yeah.
Time and time again, Charles.
I know.
They
You feel that it's an inducement to work harder if you turn off the air conditioning.
these are the innovators, okay? They're spearheading the ideation process, okay?
Why is the ideation? Is that what they're calling it now? Very good. We had other words for it in my day.
Okay.
Gold bricking comes to mind. Ideation.
You have a problem with ideation?
No, it sounds like hypnotizing the eschaton. It sounds great. I mean, that is right. My wife been ideating for years. I don't know what be going on with that lady. Well, it's all pretty strange. Other than that, you know, so we gotta say goodbye for the summer. But darling, I promise you this, I'll write you every day in a letter sealed with a kiss.
Nice.
Oh, it's gonna be a long, lonesome summer, and so forth. And let's not forget that great American and patriot, Nat King Cole, who advised us to roll out those hazy, crazy, lazy days of summer, those days of peanuts and popcorn and beer. Roll out those lazy, hazy, crazy days of summer. You'll wish that summer would last all year.
I think Nat King Cole is perhaps my favorite, one of my favorite singers. He just has such a golden voice. It's
Oh
so,
yeah,
it's so good.
yeah. He was great. The late great Nat King Cole, ladies and gentlemen. Give it up.
Yeah.
You know, although they tell us we're too young.
Well, I don't know the song. Charles. I'm sorry.
Well, you know, Mona Lisa men named you.
Okay, I know this
They have
song.
learned to
Yeah.
learn the secret of your smile. Are you warm? Are you real, Mona Lisa? Or just a cold and lonely, lovely work of art?
There we go.
You know, an ellipse. Wait a minute. This is annoying. This is very embarrassing too. A cigarette that bears a lipstick's traces. A ticket to romantic places. Oh, how the ghost of you clings. These foolish things remind me of you.
Mm. Nice.
A tinkling piano in the next apartment. That's a very evocative song.
Yeah. I don't know how you're able to sort of like absorb all of these lyrics so rapidly. I mean, like, how many times do you have to hear a song before it's like?
Well, I heard these things for years when I was a boy.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And these are not new discoveries for me. You've got to understand that for me, this was contemporary stuff, even though it was a little before me because parents listened to it all the time.
I mean, wasn't Nat King Cole 50s?
Oh, yeah, he died in 60. Well, I saw a movie with him with my mother called Cat Ballou, and he was still alive then. So that would have been like 64 or 5.
Oh, okay.
But he died 64 or 5.
I see. Okay.
It's kind of like Marilyn Monroe dying. You know, too many people have died. Let's stop the madness. Do you know virtually everyone who was 20 years old in 1887 is dead now? It's time for all of us to pull together to stop the madness. It's got to end. America, stop persecuting your elderly. Stop forcing them into aging.
Okay, wait. Okay, I'm kind of interested in the inverse of this. Not everyone who has died who was 20 years old in 1887. I'm interested in the people who haven't died being 20 years old in 1887. Who are those people? Because you said virtually everybody. You
They're
said
all gone.
virtually everybody. Well,
They're all
who's
gone.
okay?
You know what? You know what? You know how you can tell World War One was a terrible mess?
How?
Everyone who participated in it is dead.
Okay, this is leading into the memes of production.
Okay, nationalize the means of production.
For the common good. Let's see. Who do we got here? Hell, Video did some homework on you, Charles, and he
Oof.
says, "I have recently found proof on Amazon.com that you are a vampire who's been publishing books for over a century. You have written a book titled Muse in a Bottle: Great Writers on the Joys of Drinking. Amazon says that this was published by Citadel Press on June 24th, 1905. What do you have to say for yourself? And is this book worth reading?"
The book is truly worth reading. I remember very, very well the signing party for the book. We had it at the lobby of the old Hotel Astor in Manhattan. It was a really, really great thing. President Roosevelt was there. He had just gone out of office. Taft was president then. He had succeeded him, but Teddy was good. There were Vanderbilts. It was a wonderful night, gaslit. I mean, honestly, they just don't do lavish dinners today the way they did back in 1905. I mean, even then, I didn't really have the taste for solids, but I could appreciate them. And of course, tell you the truth, there's a world of difference between someone who's dined well and someone who hasn't.
What difference?
I mean, you can taste it in the blood. Someone who's dined well, you can taste the lipids and everything. Someone who's dined poorly, well, you taste that too.
Okay, that's pretty creepy.
What? Okay, so I'm outed as a vampire. Big deal. Don't you understand where we are today? This is the 21st century. No minority.
I know.
No
I have to
minority,
be
no matter.
accepting. I know.
Exactly. And those of us who are Hemeral Americans, as we say, we don't say vampire anymore. We're Hemeral Americans.
Hemeral.
Yes. We're not vampires. I mean, that's like using the N word, frankly. The V word is very nasty. Okay? I mean, look, stop and think about this for a second. People tend to associate vampires with predators of different kinds. They used to victimize pedophiles the same way. They did. But now we know it's just another kind of loving. Well, so too with us, the Hemeral Americans. It's just another kind of feeding. And I'll tell you something else. Just as the pedo can tell you that he's helping the kid by educating him in certain areas of life, we Hemeral Americans are very often prolonging the lifespan of our fellow Americans in ways that would never have been the case otherwise.
Doesn't the law require two consenting adults, though? You don't get consent.
What do you mean? Who says? Who says I don't get consent?
Okay.
Who says? Have you ever been there at a Hemeral feeding session? No, I didn't think so. So what I'm saying is, we Hemeral Americans have to have our rights protected like everyone else.
All right, fair enough, Charles. Good luck.
I mean, look, the state of California is willing to fly women to have abortions in California. Why shouldn't we ask the state to import large amounts of our native earth, wherever we come from, to establish ephemeral, lodging so we can travel more frequently.
Ephemeral lodging?
Well, yeah. See, it's like this. Due to it's wonderful being one of us. I won't pretend it isn't, but there are certain drawbacks. One of them being that by day we have to sleep on a bed of wherever we come from, the earth of wherever we're from. In my case, Upper East Side Manhattan. And I have to have we don't say coffin anymore. It's a sleeping unit. So my sleeping unit has to be lined with soil from the Upper East Side of Manhattan, actually specifically from the old St. Patrick's Cemetery. Anyway, that's where it's got to be. Now, it would be so much more helpful. Have you any idea how tough it is transporting that amount of dirt from one place to another?
I can't even imagine.
No, we should receive state aid in doing that.
State aid for transferring dirt so vampires can sleep?
Excuse me, ephemeral Americans. It's not just about sleep, it's about being able to move. Look, if I'm unable to have my native earth transported, I am stuck wherever I am. Got it?
Okay, Charles. Well, who's the governor of New York now? I'm sure it's a real winner who'll be able to come through for you on that one.
Well, it's funny. I have discussed a few things with her, but she's not quite as bright as Governor Cuomo was, and he wasn't the
Oh.
brightest bulb either. So, it's been kind of tough, and I think it's simply unfair. I mean, take yourself for instance. All right, if you wanted to come here to Austria, or you wanted to go to New York, you wanted to go to Shanghai, if you had the money, just hop on a plane and fly, right? Have you any idea how much more difficult it is for us? We can only fly at night.
Why don't you just close the windows?
It doesn't work like that. And the other thing is that if you get hungry on a flight, it's a little more difficult. We can't just ask the stewardess to bend her throat,
Okay, I understand, Charles. I'm sorry about your plight.
I mean, it's terrible. You have to take special flights, or you take a ship, and then sometimes people get superstitious about it.
All right, well, let's stop talking about creepy vampire food and let's talk about other kind of
jolly vampire
weird
food. Other kinds of weird food.
Let's get
not jolly vampire food.
Superfan Anita wrote in and says, "I want to start commenting on Cincinnati chili. I got my hand."
Oh, and I'm a villain for drinking blood, but Cincinnati chili is okay, fine.
Well, that's a fair point. All right.
Yeah, I guess it is a fair point.
All right. Okay. So she says, I got my hands on a can and tried it over spaghetti. My verdict is as follows: chili and cheese over spaghetti totally works. But if I came up with my own chili recipe for pasta, I would make it thicker and less vinegary than the Cincinnati kind. That probably makes me a Cincinnati heretic, but in my defense, I have never been to Cincinnati or even the state of Ohio, so I don't think I can be entirely blamed for my heterodox tastes. Agreed.
I agree. She should be allowed to visit Ohio as soon as possible to sample Cincinnati chili in its native environment. See, and remember, it's never as good coming out of a can.
Imagine flying all the way to Ohio just to taste Cincinnati chili.
Oh, I think a person who was deeply dedicated would do it.
That's one.
I mean, I've heard of people flying to Fall River, Massachusetts, just to pick up a chow mein sandwich.
That is A tall tale. All right. I need evidence on that one, Charles. And speaking of,
I get it. You'll believe the vampire story, but you won't believe the chow mein sandwich. Okay. I'll tell
it's
you what,
actually
boss.
true.
I'll tell you
I
what,
believe
boss.
a lot, Charles, but that was a bridge too far.
Yeah, you believe a vampire more easily than you'd believe in the chow mein sandwich. Okay, well, there's not a lot I can do with this, so we'll just move on.
All right, let's move on to Don from Florida, who says, if Charles is greeted with French Canadian pea soup upon his entry to heaven, then Don Vincenzo should be aware that if he is greeted with the sight of Cincinnati chili and chow mein sandwiches upon his death, then he will surely be in for a long purgatory. Wow, imagine that though. I mean,
yes, it'd be
you just
wonderful.
die and then
It'd be in heaven. I could see an angel presenting a chow mein sandwich the minute you enter heaven. I could see that.
I can't see that. That's more purgatory. I need to get my act together if that's the case in purgatory. Really need I need to clean my act up.
Well, you could do this another way. If you have your chow mein sandwiches on Earth, you won't need them in purgatory.
That's a perverse. That's I don't like thinking in that manner. That's like, well, if you flagellate now on Earth, you don't need that in purgatory. Well,
exactly. See, now you understand. You whatever punishments and pains you go through on Earth, you don't do in purgatory. So get ready. I think a trip to New Bedford is in your future.
Oh, I hope not. All right.
What you can do is you can pick up our friend. You can drop her off in Cincinnati and continue the flight, the gourmet flight to New Bedford.
The gourmet flight, yes. Oh man. All right. State of the week time. Let's move forward with the state of the week.
Right. Which is?
I'm just I feel inspired by Anita and this whole sort of revisiting of Cincinnati chili. So let's go with Ohio.
Have we never done Ohio before?
Nope, not on my list.
Okay, well, Ohio. Why did I ever leave Ohio?
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful Ohio. I was born in Chillicothe. My middle name is Hiawatha. I'm out to get the gold in them hills, so I said goodbye, Ohio. Back in Ohio, where I come from, I done a lot of dreaming and I traveled some, but I never thought I would see the day that I ever took a trip on the Atchison, on the Atchison, Topeka, on the Atchison, Topeka, and the Santa Fe. There, I've got that on my system.
Nice.
So Ohio is really a fascinating state, all joking aside. It has four major cities in which I've been in three. The biggest is Cincinnati, which has gone downhill a bit, but it's still very nice. A lot of museums, beautiful cathedrals, St. Peter and Chains, which gave its name to a punk group in LA. It's really a lovely city, a lot of old architecture and all that. Columbus is the state capital, and impressive in a downtown government kind of way. My favorite city, though, in Ohio is Cleveland, which used to be Dumpo-Rama. It was so bad in the 70s, the Cuyahoga River caught on fire.
Really?
Think about that. The river caught on fire.
Like, what, they couldn't put it out, or I don't understand. Like, what, there's gasoline on top?
Yeah. Stop and think about how polluted a river has to be to catch fire.
I mean, is there like oil and gasolines conspicuously
The,
floating on the top?
there was then, yeah. It was filth. But Cleveland has really pulled itself together in the past 15, 20 years, and it's beautiful. Downtown Cleveland is lovely. Um, I've got a lot of friends in Cleveland. There are a lot of ethnics there: Hungarians and Slovaks and Italians and Ruthenians and Ukrainians and Slobovians.
That doesn't sound so bad.
It's not bad at all. A lot of Irish, a lot of Italians. The downtown, as I say, has been really refurbished, and it was done not by Disney or somebody. It was done all by local people pulling together. I'm very fond of Cleveland. Toledo, I don't know very well, uh, but it's got the most French Canadians of any town in Ohio, which by itself is good. Tremendous art museum, and Cleveland also has a tremendous art museum. They also have a lot of beautiful church architecture and Irish pubs and so on. Now, the rest of the state is very rural, and southeastern Ohio in particular is quite rural. Uh, and the history of the state goes back as far as the French Indian Wars, but there are a few historic sites, but not too many. Near Cincinnati is the wonderful town of Dayton, Ohio. Uh, there's the Wright brothers, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is near there, and Oakwood, Ohio, where the brothers Lowe came from, Rob Lowe and his brother. And in Lebanon, East Lebanon, Ohio, is a fabulous old tavern, 1805, called the Golden Lamb. And that is pretty much what I know about Ohio, a state I've been to a number of times, but could spend a lot more time in. The Buckeye State.
I'm gonna catch this now because this happened with Michigan. So you said everything's rural outside of those three cities, but then you mentioned Dayton. I don't know if Dayton is gonna be a rural area, is it?
No, Dayton's not a rural
Oh,
area. It's unfortunately it's big enough to become a slum, but it does have a beautiful Catholic church, the Emmanuel,
oh.
in it.
Hmm.
Uh, but
It's interesting looking at these states for no other reason. It's really interesting to me what cities border what states. Like since I had no idea Cincinnati was that close to Louisville and
yeah, it borders
Indianapolis.
Kentucky.
Yeah.
Covington, Ohio, Covington, Kentucky is across the river, the Ohio. Uh, yeah, it's quite an interesting place. There are elements of the southeastern part of the state that was settled by Welsh, by Southerners. Uh, there are areas that have sort of broken Indian groups in them. I mean, Ohio is a fascinating state, without a doubt.
And it looks like all that West Virginia nice forest area kind of bleeds into Ohio, southeast Ohio.
It does. It
Hmm.
does. And
Nice.
also in Cleveland, I forgot to mention, you also have areas that are settled by Appalachian people
Hmm.
living in the big city. A lot of beautiful church architecture, a lot of beautiful civic architecture. Great place, great state.
Hmm. All right, Charles.
It became a state in 1803, just so you know.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. On to the questions. Uh,
All right,
for, first question. Well, actually, we have actually four really good questions from Don from Florida. I'm actually really excited for these questions because
all
these
right.
are
Let's hear
really
them.
top notch.
Let's hear them. Let's hear them.
In the New Atlantis, Francis Bacon makes the observation that those living below the equator have an inferior work ethic to those living above the equator. Along these lines, what are your thoughts on the nexus between those who speak the Romance languages, live in warmer climates, their expressions of faith and emotion, as well as their views on a well lived life, versus those who speak Germanic languages, living in colder climates, and their expressions of faith and emotion? Is there any further reading you could suggest on this subject matter?
Well, I can't really suggest anything more to read. I'll just say that the Mediterranean peoples, in their way, tend to be rather smarter in some ways than the Germanic speakers. But seriously, there's long been a theories by various people about the effect of climate on the industriousness or lack thereof of various people. Um, I don't know the truth of it, except that the French Canadians are the best of both worlds.
Strikes me that with different climates, different peoples have the opportunity to be industrious in different ways. Like
Well, like in
industrious
southern,
on how to handle the cold and industrious on how to protect yourself from the heat, you know?
but like in Southern California, nobody's, yeah, for sure. Because I mean, it's just, and I mean, yeah.
I mean, put it a different way. It's like, oh, well, like our coastal people from coastal cities more industrious than people from forest cities. Well, yeah, coastal people from coastal cities, I imagine, are much better fishermen than people from the forest. But I bet people in the forest, like perhaps I don't know Vienna or inland, are much better hunters than
Yeah,
you know what I
but you did have
mean?
a lot more commerce. Yeah, but you did have a lot more commerce on the coast.
Mm, I say,
So anyhow, I don't know.
yeah.
What's the second question?
Uh, Other than the obvious reason of most cultures originating as agrarian, why do you think society is still structured favoring morning people versus night people? Obviously, electricity would play a role in this, but are there any cultures historically pre or post electricity whose culture was structured primarily around staying up late rather than waking up early? Nice.
Well, we Hemeral Americans were definitely like that.
Oh,
What?
wow. Boy, perfect episode for that question. I'll say that.
No, I mean we're about the only ones. See, the rest of the human race is busy working from sun up to sundown, but we're just the opposite. Our day starts at sundown, and then it's a question of finding sufficient provision early in the evening so that we can go on to more artistic pursuits later on.
That makes sense. But yeah, it makes sense that other than Hemerol Americans, that there's not really a lot to do at night, or it would cause people to stay up late.
Yeah,
You know.
not much. Not really, no.
um, but hmm. All right. Are you an early bird or night owl, Charles?
Not all.
Yeah. Is anyone in your family an early bird? Is your
Not
brother?
after the change. Not after the change.
Well, I walked into that one. All right.
Yeah, you did. You really walked into that one. But in the real world, as opposed to this one, my brother is a early bird.
I figured. Okay.
That's why he catches worms constantly. It's, believe me, because he's not a fisherman, is not at all helpful.
All right.
I've
In
seen him go to his office and drop a bunch of worms on someone's desk, and they never appreciate it.
In Western countries, particularly the United States, we often hear of the GI generation as the greatest generation. But what of their
Yes,
parents,
indeed.
the lost generation? After all, they raised a GI generation while also living through the Spanish flu, Great Depression, two world wars, Korea and Vietnam, and did so bravely without they or their children compromising their faith or principles in the way the GI generation and their children, the baby boomers, did. Why is there not more written or discussed around the supposed lost generation?
Envy and guilt, I would suppose.
Now, this is kind of interesting. So, for me personally, and I think perhaps for a lot of people, I've always heard the term lost generation with the context of literature like Hemingway. because these are,
Yeah,
it's referring to lost to expatriates who have gone overseas, and they're just you know lingering around. But so the whole generation is referred to as lost generation.
yeah.
And
Although it's not really very appropriate because the truth of the matter is that with some few exceptions, uh, they came back and they did their jobs. You know, when I was a boy, there was still an awful lot of them in circulation. It might be your pharmacist, lawyer, even a cop, and they just, they had terrible experiences, but they dealt with them and moved on.
I, I guess what I want to ask is, do you feel that's an appropriate adjective to define that the whole generation?
Not really, because the point is most of them weren't lost. Most of them pushed through and did what they had to do.
Yeah.
Uh, and you talk to some of them. I think of my grandfather, my great uncles, and various elderly people we knew. They'd been through all sorts of horrors, but what do? You can't live in the past all the time. You can't just live in the horror that you experienced when you were 19 years old. You have a
Yeah.
wife, you've got a family, you've got, you remember it, of course, it doesn't go away, but you've got a life to live.
All right, so I guess there's two aspects to this question. I guess I want to touch on. So first is,
Okay.
how did the Lost Generation compare to, I guess, the GI generation?
Well, for one thing, the GI generation were really in a sense, the inventors of a dichotomy between youth and age in culture. In other words, the whole idea of a separate youth culture that was not integrally part of everything else, that comes from them. Although the boomers would take it to strange and unheard of heights. Uh, uh, so that's one big difference. Another big difference is that a lot of the GI generation felt a bit guilty, or not necessarily guilty, but having gone through a certain amount of privation when they were young, they wanted to make sure that their children never did. So they spoiled them in ways that the preceding generation either couldn't or wouldn't do. So I think that's pretty much the biggest part of it.
So which generation do you think did a better job, or is it all downhill? So by default, Lost
All
Generation did
downhill
better.
by default,
Uh,
lost generation.
wow. So the greatest generation isn't really the greatest generation.
No. But I think of the wonderful, wonderful verse by Horace in Latin, which in English runs Injurious time, what age escapes thy curse? Evil our grandsires were, our fathers worse, and we, till now unmatched in ill, these successes more corrupted still.
Um, what about the last part of Don's question when he says, "Why isn't there more written or discussed about the Lost Generation?"
What does I say? Guilt and envy.
Hmm.
Guilt because we know we're not what they were, envy because we wish they were. And of course, I mean, I can only imagine what my grandparents and their colleagues would have made of our transgender and all the rest of the garbage we do. We would have looked like rare morons to them.
Hmm. All right. And Don says, finally, towards the end of World War II, General Patton had the idea to align with the defeated Germans and with the Allies turn their guns on the Soviets. This, among other controversies, ultimately led to his relief of military command and perhaps even his death. Playing
All
out
true.
alternative history, what if Ike and Truman took Patton's advice and convinced the Allies to turn their guns on the Soviets. It would have been a long, drawn out war, but what if they were successful? What would this have meant for post war Europe, Germany, the consecration of Russia, and the Catholic Church? Without a model to emulate in the Soviet Union, what would have become of the Marxists and Marxist sympathizers in academia, politics, and the church? How different would history have been, both good and bad? Wow.
Hugely. I can't imagine what the bad would have been, though since we're talking about human beings, there would have been some. But the good, where do you start? No Cold War, no decades and decades of Russians and Central and Eastern Europeans being oppressed by horror and scum. No fall of China to Mao Zedong.
Ooh.
No Korean War. No Vietnam War. It'd be a real loss to everybody, I guess.
Wow,
Be a
this is
loss. And I mean, even Jane Fonda would have had to stay apolitical. What a loss that would have been.
well. Well, how about this? The aspect of the question says, "What would have become of the Marxists and Marxist sympathizers without a model to emulate in the Soviet Union?" So, I guess my question is, I mean, it sort of assumes that the war, or like if the Allies took down the Soviet Union, that would kill that sort of energy. But does a war kill an idea like that?
It could really damage it. I mean, think of Nazism.
Hmm.
How many Nazis do you know?
Well, that's very true.
How respectable is Nazism today?
Hmm.
So yeah, I would say that losing the war really changed things for the Nazis. It was the game changer.
I love when it's fun to discover those that jargon that really triggers you. I like that.
Yeah, it was the game changer because like they lost, and so they were like beaten into the dirt, and they've never really gotten up.
Hmm. Okay. Um. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I guess it's like. It's like Fatima. Russia will spread her errors. So it's.
Yeah.
Well, it's
So I
interesting.
mean,
Was the Soviet Union intact then? What was the timeline with Fatima? I mean, did it
1917. It was not yet born.
it was not yet born. Okay, so okay, that's interesting. Huh. All right. Another question from Connor this time. Super
Okay.
fan Connor.
Yeah.
Uh, how similar or different was the discrimination against the Germans and German culture in America during World War One compared to Russia and Russian culture now? I feel like I see a lot in common, but maybe not quite the same extremes yet. God forbid.
Well, possibly not. I mean, I don't know. I haven't been home for a while, but uh, it was pretty stupid in World War One. They renamed sauerkraut Liberty Cabbage. Dachshunds would get kicked in the streets. Ethnic German parishes of all denominations, from one end of the country to the other, stopped using German in sermons. Uh, yeah, it was pretty stupid. So I would say the basic impulse was the same. I mean, I remember when the French would not go to war with us against Iraq, and President Bush renamed French fries freedom fries and attacked the French as surrender monkeys and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We don't like foreigners who don't do as we tell them.
Well, that makes sense.
Uh,
All right. Anita asks a question we've had several times before, but it's okay because it's a fun question. And she says, Charles, please tell us about Dagger John Hughes, the first Archbishop of New York. What were his strengths and weaknesses as a prelate? Please do not leave out the story of his conditional threat to turn New York City into a second Moscow in 1844.
Well, he was as she says, the Archbishop of New York from the 1840s through to the 1860s. He was called Dagger John for two reasons. One, when he wrote the cross at the head of his name, it would look like a dagger instead of a cross because the cross bit was like oval, and also because of his personality. He didn't take garbage. So when they were having the Know Nothing riots, to which you responded, to which you mentioned, and convents and churches got up in flames in Boston and Philadelphia and Charleston, she said to the mayor of
You mean he?
the mayor. Oh, sorry. He said to the mayor of New York, when he said, "Who's a know nothing?" Dagger John said, "Well, I really hope nothing of that sort happens here." And the mayor sneered and said, "Oh, are you afraid for your churches?" And he said, "No, I'm afraid for your city, because if a single Catholic property is damaged or a Catholic life lost, we'll make of this place another Moscow," referring to its burning under Napoleon. And do you know nothing happened to any Catholic property or person?
Wow.
See, when you threaten people who threaten you, and they're basically bullies, they often back down.
Do you think that in modern context that's possible to do that? Or do you think politicians have enough power to follow through on threats?
Depends. What did we see in the hot, hot summer of burning love?
What did we see? I don't
We
know.
saw we saw politicians encouraging the Antifa and the BLMs to burn and loot under the idea of, what was the word they used?
What,
The
civil
idea that
disobedience? Peaceful?
mostly peaceful
Yeah.
demonstrations. That was it. Well, mostly peaceful demonstrations in which scores of people died and thousands of homes were torched and businesses. Whereas the insurrection on January 6th, which set the republic to its knees, nothing. 106 yahoos going into the Capitol building, messing things up a bit, and that was it.
Well, so look at what happened. Okay, that happened. So doesn't that mean the politicians have some power and are bullies who can actually follow through?
They can. Unfortunately, it's generally the evil ones who do, and not the good ones.
Yeah. Well, to what extent? I mean, what if there was a good one? Like, what would happen? Like, what would that look like? Like, who would come? Like, would he get people? You know? Like, you've got a lot of angry people on the evil side, right? So it's like, okay, all you angry people, go do evil things, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know if that same sort of like. Well, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, is there that energy there? Can we tap
Well,
that?
if you had sane people say, when the morons attack, do with them as you will. Open fire. That'd be one way of dealing with the issue. You've got a swarm of would-be looters coming into a neighborhood, and the top boss of the neighborhood says, "All right, arm yourselves. When they come, shoot for the whites of their eyes." Then pop, pop, pop. And they're capped. And that's the end of them.
Well, I think a politician would have to say, like, you will not be prosecuted or something, right? Like, there would have to be assurances before you start doing that, right? Otherwise,
it depends on how angry the crowd is. Sometimes they don't care.
No, I mean, like, I'm talking about, like, they're not actually going to be like the district attorney is not going to prosecute. He's not going to like actually go after these people, right? Like Rittenhouse.
Probably not. No.
Yeah. All right. One last question for this episode. So I know that's a relief to sleepy time, Charles.
Yes. I'm one with Joe Biden.
Oh, oh, okay. All right.
Jazz hands. Jazz hands.
All right. Anita asks, Charles, please tell us about Blessed Clemens von Galen, Bishop of Munster during the Hitler era. His story is conspicuously absent from popular histories, like those by William Shire and Wallace Duell and Winston Churchill's war memoirs. He has been subject to vilification similar to that leveled at Venerable Pius XII, and even in his own time, he seems to have been scorned as, quote, entirely 13th century by his confreres in the hierarchy. Does his cause for sainthood have any traction today, or is he too much of a rebuke to the present generation? Thank you and God bless.
No, he's become a blessed so far, and sainthood can't be too far off. He is a rebuke to all the scum and losers that attacked him. The Lion of Munster, they called him. He was from an old Catholic noble family, the Counts von Galen. And he stood up when everybody else was cowardly.
So, okay. Do you think it's getting harder to canonize these types of figures?
Oh,
compared
yeah. Oh, yeah. Because, see, the problem with them is that it makes the current people look so stupid, so weak. Just like a bunch of lily-livered little morons, who would be better replaced by a bunch of statues.
But I mean, isn't it a question of whether or not you can tease out a cultus?
Oh, he has a cultus. Oh, you mean like Harvey Milk?
I knew that would get your blood flowing.
I'm sick of these morons. Oh, he's 13th century. Oh, I'm so 21st century. I'm like a prostitute, except I don't make any real money. Honestly, if there's anything that drives you through the roof, it's moderns presuming their own moral supremacy. It just drives me nuts. We've all got the blood of infants on our hands. We're not in a position to open our little mouthlets in criticism of such figures as von Galen. They called him the Lion of Munster because he stood up and he stood tall. Who's standing up for the church in China? Who's standing up for the unborn?
What? Wait, Cardinal Zen. Wait, what? Right?
Well, Cardinal Zen. Yes, he is. But I'm talking about creatures that are, shall we say, more central in the governance of the church.
Yeah, I see.
But who have big mouths. See, this is constantly yapping all the time. What pours out is useless.
So, what else did von Galen do that sort of draws criticism and brings about a criticism that he's entirely 13th century? Like, what brought that on?
He was very anti-communist. He was a great proponent of Quadragesimo Anno, which was Pius XI's thing on the reorganization of society. So he was very friendly toward guild socialists and people like that. And that's where that comes from. You're completely 21st century. You're in a gender reassignment camp. Now go away. You're 21st century. Go away. I mean, oh, that drives me crazy. Whenever I hear someone prattling about being modern and all that, it makes me think, I've said this before, of the madam of a bordello, utterly outraged because she's sure some of the chicks are smoking after work. Oh, I know they're doing it. I know it's so awful. Madam, you understand what kind of a business you run here? Yeah, so what? Today's action hierarchy.
All right. Are we gonna end on that? Are we gonna end on the bordello, or are we gonna do happy
end
fun
on the
time?
bordello. I
Okay.
like that. And then end on the bordello. I like that. As
Okay.
a title. End on the bordello. But no, we're not gonna end on the bordello.
Okay.
You never end on the bordello. Brigitte Bordello. No, what we want is something joyful and astonishing.
Ooh, I like astonishing.
Do you? All right. Are you ready? Are you
Yeah,
seated?
yeah.
I'm not really a vampire. I'm sorry. It's not true.
Well,
And
I
my
mean,
book did not really come out in 1905. It came out in 2002. I don't know why they have that. I'm sorry.
well, that's a relief because if the former was true, I actually would just be, according to Catholic teaching, I'd just be talking to a demon possessed corpse.
Well, I've been accused of that before. And sadly, because we're putting this out now, there's a certain number of people who I'm sure will run with this. Coulombe admits he's a vampire. I knew it all along. Yeah, I'm sure you did.
Oh man, but doesn't it feel good to
To,
be
to find it that the
heard,
world know I'm a vampire,
to
yeah.
be listened to doesn't that signify that you matter, that you're relevant, that you're a player? In democracy, you have to be a player.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Then why is it we're constantly dealt twos? Never aces, always deuces. How come?
I don't even know what that means. What? Oh, I don't know. Why are we always dealt twos and not aces? Okay.
You don't know what that means?
I
Of course
mean,
you do.
I do, but you're not usually. I don't know. It's strangely lyrical and metaphorical, which is usually not your route. So you've kind of got me off balance here and suspicious.
Suspicious? Of what?
Of what's to come.
Well, the rest of the summer and then the autumn and then winter and Christmas. What do you mean, what's to come? I don't get it.
I don't know. I thought maybe like some song is about to, I don't know, whether it's Kenny Rogers or I don't know. Know when to hold them, know when to fold them.
Well, that's good advice. No way. You got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your money. When you're sitting at the table, there'll be time enough for counting when the game is done. Yeah. And those are words I live by. Alongside, you do one for mama, mama do one for you.
Okay.
What?
All right. All right. What?
Look, all I can tell you is ask any of the chickies in my pen. They'll tell you I'm the biggest mother hen. I love them all, and all of them love me because the system works. The system called reciprocity. Reciprocity.
Well,
Yes.
who's that? Who's that by?
Look,
Oh, okay.
I've got a little saying always sees me through. You do one for mama, mama do one for you.
All right.
Don't you know that this hand washes this hand too? You be good to mama, mama be good to you.
Okay.
What?
All right. You're taking time off my purgatory right now. That's for sure.
Well, now wait a minute. Let's think about this for a second. Now hold on.
In the words of Cardinal Dolan, let's not. Let's end the show.
Let's take a deep breath. Let's all stroke together like the Princeton crew. Now think carefully. Think carefully. When you were a boy, a little boy, say you're 6 years old, okay?
Okay.
Now you're back at the old house. You're visiting the family. Keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
You're 6 years old. It's a Saturday night, and you hear voices in the far chamber. So you remember you cross the big piano room and all that, and then you go up the stairs. You with me?
Yeah.
You see there's lights on, and you hear voices, and they're sometimes speaking in Italian and sometimes English. And you open the door, and there's your great uncle and some of his business associates. You with me so far? Now remember, you're still 6 years old.
I remember. Okay.
What do you say?
I'm sorry. What? I don't know.
I'm
What?
sorry, I'm gonna go back to bed.
Yeah.
That's what you said, and you
Yeah.
went back to bed. All
Yeah.
right. See? Don't you feel better now?
Yeah. What? You took a moment from my childhood, and okay.
Yeah, and I made it live again. And that's the power of beautiful memories.
Thank you, Charles. I appreciate it.
I'm here. I remember the first time you ever met Officer Clancy.
Okay.
I'll never forget. He gave you a candy and you immediately asked for 2 more. You were going to tell your great uncle. And he said, "What an intelligent pie. So bright he is. Here it is, and here's 4 more, too." And he turned to me and he said, "That lad's going to go far. Even at that age, he knows how the world works." Oh, man. I'm on a nostalgia kick these days, kid. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's all right. We're gonna end on Officer Clancy. No finer way to end the show.
That's for sure. You know, a touch of the old sod.
All right. We'll see you next week. And remember, if it's Monday
It's off the menu.
and the soul you save
I just will be your own, me bucko.